Really, our veterans are what make this day special. As the daughter of an Air Force veteran and the sister of a former Army reservist, I'm very proud of our men and women in uniform who continue to serve and sacrifice so much. In fact, let's go ahead and take our first live picture here, one of the Veterans Day parades that's taking place. We know there are so many happening across our country today. We're up in the air, kind of going over one. This one was in Mesa, Arizona, that they were taking a live picture of just a few moments ago here. But again, they are on the move. We're going to be talking with someone from Wreaths Across America about their work to make sure the stories of the fallen are not forgotten. And I'm also looking forward to learning more about a program at UIC where researchers have been able to recover remains of the missing from conflicts around the world and make families whole. So we have a few opportunities here today. If we see something like an observance or something of that sort, a parade that will be going on that's planned for today, we will try to take you there live. But we're going to get started here today with what is a really disturbing incident that took place, and it's now turned into a viral video involving the founder and owner of Barstool Sports that's now headquartered in Chicago's West Loop. But Michael Babcock, executive producer of TMZ Sports, is now joining me with some details of what went down. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Although I wish that it was about something better for us to talk about. Let's just start with why Dave Portnoy was in Mississippi and what a now former Mississippi State University student is accused of doing.
Yeah, so Dave Portnoy was in Mississippi State, or at Mississippi State, I should say, in Starkville before the football game that was on Saturday, Mississippi State and Georgia game. And anyone who's familiar with Dave Portnoy or his Barstool Sports organization may know that he has created this one bite pizza review where he will go to pizza restaurants across the country and he will rate these shops. But it's become incredibly popular and very viral. So these things are a big deal. So he's out there in Starkville at a local pizza shop, and you've got a fairly large crowd that are all there watching Dave film his review. A 20-year-old, like you said, now former student, walks by and yells something that is anti-Semitic. Obviously won't repeat it, but yells something that's very disparaging to Jewish people. Not just that, he also is said to have been throwing coins at Dave Portnoy as this review is going on. So there's a bit of a verbal altercation. Thankfully, nothing turned physical right there on the ground. And the guy who was yelling out the anti-Semitic comments, he left. But there was video of the incident. Obviously, a lot of people out there filming. So it was just a matter of time before this person was going to be identified. And that's exactly what happened. Now, he has withdrawn from Mississippi State, likely because the school told him, if you don't withdraw, we're going to kick you out. We're going to expel you. So he's withdrawn from the university. Not just that, he is now facing a criminal disturbing the peace charge from the local police department. It's a misdemeanor, but nonetheless, it's a criminal charge. So he's been kicked out of school and is also now dealing with the criminal charge, all because of this 120-second incident on Friday.
Yeah, not the reason why you want to become internet famous here. 20-year-old Patrick McClintock, I'm seeing here, a junior mechanical engineering major of all things. So by all means, he was a smart young man who did a really dumb thing here, who's been processed and released. So the video went viral, as we're saying. What have people been saying online?
Well, some good, some bad. Look, obviously, this is something I think that we have seen rise across the country. It's troubling and it's scary, especially if you're someone of Jewish faith. And a matter of fact, Dave Portnoy has spoken about that in light of this story, in light of what happened, and just how big of a deal it's become. He says now, he goes, look, I deal with these threats on a day in, day out basis. Nothing necessarily that gets the attention that this incident got. He said, but I'll get messages on social media. I'll get people saying that they want to harm me in a way because of the religion that I am. He said it's gotten so bad that he has 24/7 security now, essentially somebody protecting him around the clock because he doesn't feel safe because, again, he believes that there's anti-Semitism out there and that he is, as a high-profile person, that he's a target. So that's happening. You've also, though, I think you've got people who say, hey, look, for better or worse, free speech is, one of the things that America is built upon. And I think a lot of people, or some people, I should say, are troubled by the fact that somebody gets in trouble, no matter how heinous the comment is, for something that they said. So a lot of fascinating conversations, if nothing else, going on right now that sort of surround this incident.
Yeah, that is an interesting side of it. I mean, even with the immigration issues that we've had here in Chicago, the ongoing conversation there, one of the things that the judge has talked about is that line of free speech and the fact that, well, if people say they don't like you, they want you to get out of here, or even if they use coarse language, it's still just speech. But when does speech turn into something else? And like you said, he said, sadly, this isn't new for him.
No, right. Yeah. I mean, to think that, and he has made a tremendous amount of money, so it's not that he doesn't have it, but just the fact that he would have to pay to have somebody by his side around the clock to protect him, even if it's just a perceived threat, even if there's nobody out there that wishes him to actually do him harm, just the fact that he is concerned enough to say, I'm going to pay somebody around the clock to protect me, I think it's shows the sad state that we're in many ways.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I do want to ask you, do you feel like this is kind of par for the course for social media personalities now?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, there's so many great things, as we all know, about social media, and it's connected people, and there's so much good. But the other side of the coin is there is a lot of ugliness on social media, and it is, I think in many ways, as we all know, it's allowed people who might have some hate in their heart or just want to be agitators to say things that they would never say if they were face to face with somebody because they were scared of the repercussions or whatever else the fears might be, but they would never say it face to face. But that anonymity that the computer can provide you, I think that's one of the worst parts of social media for as much good as it does offer too.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you foresee celebrities changing or shifting the way that they interact with the public now that we're seeing more of this?
Yeah, I think a lot of people just want to throw their hands up, and if you're and Dave Portnoy is a controversial person, and he can give it as much as he can take it. So I don't know that he's ever going to be one that steps away. But I think you've got some people out there who say this is just not worth the trouble. Look, why am I subjecting myself to this abuse day in, day out? And I'm just gonna log off and not deal with it because it's not improving my life in any way, and it's just causing me stress and strife. So I don't think Dave Portnoy will do that, but I do think you're starting to see people react like that. Like, this is just not worth it.
Yeah. And the police have interacted, or they've come out with a statement here saying that they were aware of the video that was circulating, and kind of going back into that issue of free speech, that every person has the right to feel safe and respected, though, in their community. Offensive words alone, they say, are protected, but when behavior disrupts a public event or risks violence, the Starkville Police Department will take steps to help maintain safety and security. Talk about, and we've had many conversations with you, it seems in the last several months especially, about this rise in anti-Semitism and where we go with this and how we come to this point.
Yeah, I mean, you hear it, and obviously you look at some of the incidents that have been happening across the country, and I don't think that there's there's no way to deny that there has been an uptick in anti-Semitism and in hate crimes as a whole. And I mean, it's troubling. I don't think it's the direction that anybody wants to, or any sane or moral people. It's not the direction that they want to see the country go in. Those are the kind of incidents that need to be lessened, not increased. But it doesn't seem like that's happening, and it does seem like things are getting worse. And I fear for where this ultimately goes, because it seems like, especially amongst a segment of the young population of college students, like we said, this guy otherwise seemed like a very smart person. I mean, with the major and everything else he had going on, you see this is an educated person. Well, those are pretty hateful ideas, and if people like that are thinking in that way, I think a lot of people are probably fearful for the future and what this country might look like going forward.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that particular case, like you mentioned from the outset, that he is withdrawn from school. I was looking around the background of your newsroom there. I saw Chris and I don't know if I saw Harvey go by, but I do see a big gathering over there. Let me ask you, I wonder if people are starting to have a conversation about Diddy. I know there's some big news there in the day ahead. Can you kind of address that while we have you here?
There have been a lot of talk about Diddy. I mean, the reality with Diddy is he has obviously been in jail or been behind bars since September of 2024. But he just about 2 weeks ago got moved from the temporary, essentially a holding facility in Brooklyn, where inmates are housed before or during their trial, before sentencing. He is now in his more permanent prison, a place called Fort Dix in New Jersey. He's gotten more freedom, but he has also gotten in trouble since he's been there. There was an incident where Diddy was said to have been drinking basically a homemade brew, a homemade alcohol that the inmates will make. And so he has, with the increased freedom, he has found himself in some trouble after, by and large, being a model inmate throughout his entire trial. So he is set to get out now, May 8th, 2028. But if he gets in trouble behind bars, that is something that could certainly be pushed back. And maybe he doesn't get out in May of 2028. Maybe it's actually later than that.
Oof. All right. Well, we had one day of talking about Diddy today, and that's the day after we were talking about Ghislaine Maxwell and what's going on in her prison. So I'm sure you all have plenty to get to today. I won't hold you up any longer, but thank you for your time.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. We'll talk again soon. Thank you so much. It's 1:12, everybody. Before we go to break here, like I said, the stars of the day are our veterans. And so we want to take you to a live picture of a parade that's happening in New York City, the Veterans Day Parade right there as we go to break. Okay, this is actually a live picture from Los Angeles now. We've moved you from coast to coast here. This is a flyover from the Veterans Day Parade there. We definitely wanted to make sure we caught this. We certainly live in the land of the free because of the brave, and moments like this are just great to be able to take in. 122 right now, and even though it's Veterans Day, the stock market is open, so we want to see what's going on Wall Street. We'll take you to the big board now, and you can see some green on the screen. Yes, things have been up and down again, but here you can see the Dow Jones is now rallying here. We're up over 500 points for the day. The NASDAQ, I'm reading, has been struggling today, and this appears to be as a result of investors moving money away from technology stocks into other parts of the market that traded at lower valuations here. But of course, all of this is coming a day after we saw that volatility there, but some rallying going on yesterday with the major U.S. indices across the board, really, as there was some hope for record-setting U.S. government shutdown talks moving into the way of it nearing an end sometime soon. The Senate, of course, on Monday evening passed a bill to end the stoppage, sending it to the House. So the deal is not done yet. It's done for the Senate, but it goes back to the House. And boy, oh boy, is there a lot of tension still there at this point in time, especially among Democrats, kind of going back and forth as to whether they should stick to their course or not. Democrats have been demanding that any funding bill has to include an extension of Affordable Care Act subsidies. Instead, the negotiated bill from the Senate calls for a vote on the tax credits in December. So there's still much more to come on all of this. Again, the Senate was able to pass something through. There were 8 Democrats that sided with Republicans, or I should say 8 lawmakers, because there was one independent who caucuses with the Democrats, but they all sided with Republicans. As we give you this live picture now, to the White House. It goes to the House. The House has to go back through it again, and eventually this has to go to the president's desk. So there's still quite a bit more on that we're still waiting on to come to fruition and to see what happens with that. You know, the closer we get to the holidays, there are multiple issues from the government shutdown that have been compounding, and one of those is the set of issues that's happening with air traffic and air travel. It's been wreaking havoc on it over the last several days here. So we're waiting on a press conference, just so you know that, with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy. He's going to be here in Chicago at O'Hare Airport. We expect him to have a press conference there about the status of air travel coming up in our 3 o'clock hour. So we're waiting on that. And if we're able to get, we have a reporter who's on the way there. If we're able to get a report from her as a preview, we'll go to her live as well. But let's take another quick break here, and as often as we can, as I've said before, we're going to go to Veterans Day activities that are happening throughout our nation. And so right now, I believe this is back to New York City here, where there is a gathering for their Veterans Day parade. We're going to listen in as we go to break again. 1:33 right now. Thank you so much for staying with us. You know, Wreaths Across America is always doing ongoing work to remember the fallen, to honor those who serve, and to teach the next generation the value of our freedom. And I want to bring in the Director of Communications for Wreaths Across America on this Veterans Day to speak with us a little bit about what they do. And Amber Karen is here with me now. Thank you so much for your time.
Me appreciate being here.
Absolutely. For those who are unfamiliar with Wreaths Across America, tell us what Veterans Day means for you all.
Gosh, I mean, we think of Veterans Day every day of the year, but it's a day to say thank you to those who serve, to say thank you for raising your right hand to serve your country, to ensure that we remain free. We think of ourselves as an organization who try to do that every day of the year. But as we think about Veterans Day, this is a great kickoff for us as we think forward to National Wreaths Across America Day. This year, that'll be held on Saturday, December 13th, across the country. And it's a great way to honor veterans and show our appreciation to them later in the season.
Absolutely. A lot of people think of the wreath laying ceremony at Arlington National Cemetery, but there's so much more.
Of course, yes. No, we are guests at over 5,500 participating locations now. We're in every single state, and all of these locations are run by dedicated volunteers. And we're in the Chicagoland area in Illinois. There's a lot of locations near you. If you're not sure, I encourage you to go to wreathsacrossamerica.org and look in the search locations function, and you can just put your zip code or your town. It'll pull up the closest locations to you and tell you how you can get involved in your local community.
Tell me about some other ways that people can get involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. I think people think that, we're well known for Wreaths Across America Day, which is an event, but the mission, like you said, it's a year-round mission. We have a lot of programs that are really focused on communities across the country, from our Teach program, which offers free curriculum for kids of all ages, to our partnerships with veteran service organizations all across the country. If you have a nonprofit or organization that you're participating with in your community and you need to raise funds, you can do that through Wreaths Across America all year round. Our sponsorship group program gives back $5 to any group that signs up to raise funds. We've given back over $28 million to other nonprofits through that program. And those are dollars that stay in your community all year round and place a wreath.
Yeah. That Teach part, I think, is so important because obviously as generations go by, there will be some who don't know about certain things from our past. Can you talk a little bit more specifically about that aspect of you all's mission?
The Teach piece of our mission, I think, is the most important. And if you speak to veterans today, they would probably agree that the best way to honor them is to ensure that the next generation understands what it means to serve, and the character of those who serve. And we try in everything that we do, whether you're going to place a wreath and taking a child by the hand and reading the names out loud with them and helping them to understand that this person gave their life or lived a long life but still gave their service to our country, right? It helps to educate these youth who really, less than 1% of this country serves. And so if you don't have military in your family, you might not fully understand the commitment of not just of only those who serve, but their families. And it's just so important for not just kids, people of every age, to really understand that. And I think Wreaths Across America really gives a tangible way for people to see that, and to talk to people in their community that they might not know are military families, or maybe not. Maybe they're just patriotic Americans who want to give back and say thank you. So I think that it's a great opportunity for people to come together in their communities and learn about service and sacrifice right there at home.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned the family because, I'm from a military family, and my mom will say, "What about the spouses?
Yeah.
We've served too." So thank you.
True. No, it's very true. I can't I mean, I've had the honor and the privilege to know many military families, Gold Star families, Blue Star families, and that it truly is a commitment of these whole families. And 100%, I think, again, if you're not part of the service or you don't have military in your family, you might not know that. And that's what we hope Wreaths Across America will help people understand. And we encourage you, if you're in the, to go to wreathsacrossamerica.org, look up your community, what might be near you. Every single one of our participating locations has a page where you can sign up to volunteer. It gives you information about the day and where you need to be and when, how you can sponsor or just come out and be part of the day.
Why did you get involved with Wreaths Across America?
Oh gosh, I've been involved with, this will be my 18th season
Wow.
with Wreaths Across America. So, I got it. It was an opportunity when back, again, 18 years ago in my past life in advertising and public relations world. And I had the opportunity to help support Wreaths Across America that one of their first years. And I gotta tell you, after you do it that one time, all it takes is one time to place a wreath. It sticks with you. It's an experience that stays with you, and you see the impact. It's much more than a wreath.
Yeah.
And for me, it's kind of grown into very intense and impactful relationships with individuals that I never would have had the opportunity to meet. And I'm proud of the opportunity to share the mission and to get to know more of these military families and our veterans. So it's one of those things that just stayed with me, and here I am 18 years later, and I don't regret it one bit. And it's grown a lot in that time, and it grows because it makes a difference. It does matter to people. It's more than a wreath.
And it's so important that people, you can look back and say it matters to people. When you look back on those 18 years, was there something or someone that stood out to you that has stuck with you in a particular way?
Oh gosh, there's so many, and I'm going to try to do this without crying. Yes. I'll say that first year. That first year at Arlington, I was, had no idea I was, a little over my head, I guess, that first year. And I remember our executive director, Karen Worcester, came up to me, and, it was a big day. We had a lot of national media there and attention. And she said, "I know you're very busy, but I need you to do something for me." And she took my notebook and she handed me a wreath. And she said, "You need to experience why we're here today." And it stayed with me. And I visit that headstone, same person, every year at Arlington, just to say hi. Don't know them aside from, I've learned a little bit about their life over the years, but again, it just, I was hooked after that first year.
Yeah.
And we hope that people come out, and if, we know that if you can't give of your time. There's definitely lots of ways to get involved. It's a great thing to bring it and make a family tradition, right? You can bring kids of all ages, your family, your extended family. It's an easy thing to do together during the busiest time of the year.
And teach some really important lessons for sure. You mentioned the Worcester family. Give me a little bit of their background.
They're not military. Although one of their grandsons did just decided to go into the Air National Guard, which is amazing.
Wonderful.
But they are just very grateful, patriotic Americans who, we say, they had the gift of wreaths, and that's what they could give to say thank you. And they did it very quietly for many, many years as just a family. And then it struck a chord. We say that, but it truly did. People got wind of what they were doing at Arlington and placing wreaths. They did about 5,000 wreaths every year for about almost 15 years. Wow. Just as a family. And then people wanted to be part of it. And now it's grown to, like I said, this year we'll have over 5,500 participating locations. We'll be in every single state, including Puerto Rico and Guam. And it's all volunteers who are really committed to bringing the mission to their community and honoring those service members and their families.
What does a day of wreath laying encompass? Like, walk me through a day of wreath laying.
Well, it depends on where you are. In Chicago, you might want to bundle up and make sure you check the weather. um, but all of these locations have a ceremony. So we send Wreaths Across America. If you sign up as a registered location, you receive 8 ceremonial wreaths from us, which has a flag for every branch of the military and a POW MIA flag. We encourage our volunteers to host a ceremony and to acknowledge all those the different branches and all those people in their community who've served. And then if there are wreaths that have been sponsored to be placed, some of them do it before the ceremony, some of them do it after. That's why we encourage you to go and find a location near you and look up the information, because everyone's a little different. But yeah, I mean, at Arlington, I can tell you that, we'll be placing a lot of wreaths, and there'll be a lot of folks, and there'll be a lot of tractor trailers, and there'll be lines, and people can talk to each other and wait in line and get 1 or 2 wreaths if they're lucky. At some of our smaller locations across the country, it might be a family only gets 1 wreath to place, and they do that together. But it's, everyone's a little different. We encourage our volunteers to do and focus on the things in their community that matter to them. Whether that's involving, your local, JROTC or Civil Air Patrol, or Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, get the kids involved, have color guards and have speaking roles and help pass out wreaths. And I've seen it so many different ways across the country, and all of them are unique and special to their community, I think.
Oh, that is really beautiful. And my producer was admiring your jacket as you were speaking.
Oh.
Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Oh yeah, there's just my Wreaths Across America. My Wreaths Across America a sweatshirt. We're here in Maine. I'm in Maine right now. I actually was in Chicago a few weeks ago, not too long ago. There were some flurries today. I'm not sure, so it's been a little chilly here. But I don't know if we're as cold as Chicago yet. But
well, we had our snow yesterday, so maybe it's moved on to you all. I don't know. I'm not the meteorologist, but that might be the same system.
Yeah, it might be coming here.
It's truly a testament to the fact that everyone can honor our service members in their own way, what you all do. So thank you so much for your 18 years with Wreaths Across America. I hope there are many more years to come, Amber, for you. And thank you all as an organization for what you do on an ongoing basis. And I hope many more people will join you in your efforts.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, and happy Veterans Day.
Happy Veterans Day. Thank you again. All right, everyone. So as we said, we're spending a lot of time talking about Veterans Day, of course, because it's just so important that people realize the sacrifices made for the freedoms that we have. But another big talker, of course, for today is the government shutdown, and particularly the effects on air travel. We are awaiting a press conference to happen at O'Hare that should be taking place in our 3 o'clock hour, as we give you this live picture from our Rosemont camera that shows you O'Hare in the background there. Again, waiting on that. And as we wait, we want to bring in our own Casey Cronus, who is on her way to that press conference. And Casey, thank you. I know you have had quite the day already, and it's only 1:46 right now. But tell us a little bit about the breaking news that you just left, first and foremost, and your expectation of where you're headed next.
Hey, Anita, that's right. And we actually just got to O'Hare a few minutes ago. We are parked here in the media parking, and after I chat with you, we'll head inside and get ready for that press conference. But we were sidetracked because we headed out to some breaking news on the south side near 33rd and Rhodes. 3 people were shot inside a Jewel. Police now revealing some more details about that, saying that 2 men entered the store, attempted to steal some items. Apparently, someone tried to intervene and stop them, and he was shot in the process. So that person is one of the 3 victims, and then 2 other people were bystanders who were shot, both of them in the foot. Just happened to kind of be, in the line of fire there. No one is in custody. It sounds like the man who intervened is in serious condition, so we hope that he will pull through and will be okay. He was taken to the hospital for treatment. So that's where we were earlier today. Now we're at O'Hare. As you mentioned, this press conference is set for 3 o'clock. We expect to hear from U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who will be on the ground himself. He was in Wisconsin earlier today, so it seems he is making his rounds in the Midwest. It'll be very interesting to hear what he has to say. We don't know if this is just going to be an update on the current status of things. As you know, today flight reductions bump up to 6%, working toward 10% this Friday, or if he will have some big announcement. We will wait and see, and that'll take place at 3 o'clock in Terminal 2.
Yeah, so Sean Duffy said 15 to 20 air traffic controllers are retiring daily during this shutdown. And it's been a snowball effect that's kind of been happening even before the shutdown started. You've been talking with air traffic control union members. I remember you were out at O'Hare when they were passing out some pamphlets at the beginning of this shutdown. This is an ongoing issue for them.
It is. And when we were out here during the leafleting, we were told by the union rep that this is an overwhelmed system as it is. So the government shutdown is just adding to that. It's exacerbating the situation. So you already had overworked air traffic controllers, and then you add in no pay on top of it. And many people are needing to work second jobs to make ends meet, therefore leading to potentially more sick calls, then less staff, and that means flights cannot get off the ground. So ultimately, that is why the FAA last week decided to mandate flight reductions at 40 major airports. O'Hare and Midway were on that list. Friday, it started with a 4% reduction in flights. Today, 6%. Later this week, 8%, until Friday, 10%. And the big concern right now, the big talker, is what is going to happen for Thanksgiving travel. That's obviously one of the biggest and busiest times of the year for airports and for airlines. That's one of the biggest money makers for airlines. So what is going to happen? Will the shutdown be resolved? And will flights be back on track by then? It's hard to say right now. Even if the shutdown is resolved, will flights be able to catch up in time? And that's something that we will ask Sean Duffy himself in just about an hour.
Yeah, will flights be able to get back on track? And then there's the whole issue of back pay for the workers who are going in, even though they're not getting paid. They just missed their second consecutive paycheck on Tuesday. And I was seeing that the last time there was a 35-day government shutdown, it took almost 2 months for them to get their pay.
Yeah, and just think about these families who are preparing for the holidays. It's expensive, even if we're not talking about gifts, but if you're hosting relatives, that's a lot of money spent in food, just to have family over. So think about these people who, have not gotten pay, have not gotten a full paycheck since October, or really since end of September was their last full paycheck. And now you're thinking, well, could they maybe go until the new year without a full paycheck? That's got to be tough on these air traffic controllers and other government workers who are just trying to stay afloat.
Yeah, and so I know that the premise of this is that it's about airspace safety, and of course these cuts, the 4% last Friday, the 6% as of yesterday, and the possible 10% by the end of this week. But I'm wondering, and I'm seeing a lot of people online kind of question the fact that this conference is happening at O'Hare. Obviously, we have Operation Midway Blitz happening in our area, and this back and forth between the Trump administration and our state and local government here in Illinois, and specifically in the city of Chicago. O'Hare is a big airport. Sure, it was one of the 40 on the list, but there's that question of, why did you pick O'Hare?
Right. No, it's so true. And it'll be interesting to see what Sean Duffy has to say when he kicks off this press conference at 3 o'clock. We'll be streaming that. So if you guys want to dip in at all, feel free. You know, hopefully, fingers crossed, it starts on time here. We as press have to be there at 2:45 to check in and get situated. So yes, it'll be interesting to hear if he addresses why Chicago, why O'Hare, perhaps just because it is such a major hub in the Midwest and for the rest of the country. But will he go to other airports? You know, he did go to a small airport in Wausau, Wisconsin today. But is he doing kind of a tour, or was there another reason he chose O'Hare?
Yeah. And I saw that there's some conversation about the possibility of bonuses for people who have been coming to work during this time. So I hope maybe that will be addressed as well, because there was a question of the president saying, well, there could be $10,000 bonuses for people who do come in during this time, and maybe docking pay for those who don't work.
Yeah, that's right. President Trump posted on Truth Social that, you know, I have it pulled up here, but he wrote, all air traffic controllers must get back to work now. Anyone who doesn't will be substantially docked. It's a pretty lengthy post here, but he goes on to say, I will be recommending a bonus of $10,000 per person for the distinguished service to our country. Essentially, those who did not call off during the shutdown, air traffic controllers who still showed up to work. He is recommending this large bonus. Whether or not that will happen, that is another question that we will ask Mr. Duffy today. But that is something that I'm sure will need approval if he's going to be handing out bonuses to certain people, right? So whether that happens, we'll see. Or is that just something the president is saying to try to inspire those who are calling off to get back to work? We'll see.
Yeah, whether it would happen and then where that money would come from. A couple of good questions. Casey Cronus, thank you so much. We know that you have a tight window to get in there and get set up for the press conference. And yes, we do intend to dip in as soon as that press conference begins. So thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Always great to talk to you, Anita. See you later.
Great speaking with you as well, lady. Thank you. It's about 1:55 right now. We're going to take a quick break, everyone, and we'll be right back. 1:57 right now, and as we approach the top of the 2 o'clock hour here, we're going to talk about this idea of possible $2,000 tariff rebate. It's been floated out there by President Trump in a series of Truth Social posts over the weekend. He suggested making direct payments to Americans to cover their health care cost, as well as sending out those $2,000 as would be a tariff dividend. I want to bring in Ravin Gandhi. He was a tariff expert to talk a little bit more about what this would look like and if it's even a possibility. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, glad to be here.
So give me your reaction to even hearing that this was floated out there.
Well, we all know with this president, there's what's floated out there and then what will actually happen. So I think that, Secretary Bessent this weekend, I don't know if you want to call it walking it back, but he said, well, the $2,000, it might be in the form of, no tax on tips. So I'm not sure if we're really talking about a check that people are going to get in the mail or if it's going to be some sort of accounting thing based on the tax thing.
Yeah, and I guess then similar to what we were just talking about in terms of like a $10,000 bonus for air traffic controllers who are working through this shutdown, there's the question of where exactly the $2,000 would be coming from for Americans and how much that would total.
Yeah, my gut is that this is a political calculation. We obviously saw the elections recently where you had Mondami, who was a Democratic socialist, elected in New York City, and Polymarket has a 70% chance of Trump losing the House next year. So I think inside the West Wing, that is what they're obsessed about, which is how can we hit this problem of affordability? And if, I built a business that 40 million people, were served every day. And I have a lot of experience with seeing how the consumer reacts when they get money in the mail. And the reality is they spend it. So I think that is kind of the calculus that the White House is making. And I am kind of a fiscal hawk. So personally, if there is going to be tariff revenue, I would prefer that they would just pay down the debt, because both sides in this country it's just been a debacle in terms of amassing all this debt. If I had to say what the silver lining is, it is that this is a rare situation where these quote unquote dividends would be deficit neutral, because the dollars that would hypothetically fund them are coming from tariffs, from these other countries.
Yeah, and explain that for people who really don't understand it. There's been so much conversation, especially this year, about volatility as a result of threats of tariffs or actual tariffs that have gone on foreign entities.
Yeah, well, the reality is the tariffs are real. I mean, I think at the end of Biden's term, other countries were paying effectively like a 2% tariff rate. And I think right now it's about 18%. So this administration has fired a lot of real bullets. And there are tens of billions of dollars in real dollars coming in every single month. And that is from people who make goods outside of the USA, paying into the US coffers. So I think that actually it's going to be very hard for President Trump's administration, or frankly, even a hypothetical Democratic successor. I don't know if they would shut those things off, because it's pretty popular from like a economic perspective. The question is going to be, will there be inflation? For instance, if people get this money and they start spending it, we saw what happened with President Biden when he had all the COVID stimulus. Prices sort of went up. But right now, the president is strong in that you've got a stock market at an all-time high. You have interest rates that have come way down. You have the prices of eggs that have come way down. And everyone's considering a rate cut that's going to be coming in the next month. So that's where he's sort of strong. But if this market tanks or we go into a recession, that is going to be pretty tough for the president.
Yeah, you mentioned COVID stimulus, and honestly, that was a reason that some people gave for voting to reelect President Trump. So is he possibly seeing this as a way to, especially coming after just some of the things that we saw in the elections last week, kind of set the tone for 2026?
Yeah, I think that this president is about one thing, which is growth. And, as an entrepreneur, I can support that. I think that the math just doesn't work, unfortunately, in this country in terms of paying down this debt through regular tax receipts. So we kind of have to grow our way out of it. And what that means is that if the US GDP, which is call it say $30 trillion, grows at say 4%, which is what people are thinking it's going to be this quarter, versus say 2% where it was last year. That is a tremendous benefit. But it is a gamble. I mean, this president is a gambler, so he is very much betting on companies continuing to beat their earnings. I believe something like 80% of the S&P 500 that reported over the last 2 weeks in earnings seasons beat their earnings. So far, it looks like a green light, but the U.S. economy is highly, highly complicated. I, having built that business, GMM, which was very, very impacted by tariffs in 2016, 17, 18, I used to be on TV quite a bit complaining about tariffs, saying the sky is going to fall and there's going to be a recession and there's going to be inflation. And I was wrong. That's the thing. It's so hard to predict with these tariffs. On Liberation Day this year in April, everybody wanted to declare, the U.S. economy dead and the market crashed. And then within 60 days, it was at an all-time high. So it's a really, really hard thing to predict.
Yeah, and about how much would you say the U.S. collects on tariffs?
I think the numbers that I see is it's been tens of billions of dollars thus far at a minimum. And I believe that, now if you believe the projections, President Trump has said things that are, pretty wild. He has said that this could end up being hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. He's floated the idea of eliminating the income tax, which, again, as a realist, I just don't think that is going to happen. But these are the kinds of things that fire up his base. The president loves to gin up animal spirits. And these are the kinds of things that, it's a very big red meat issue. The question is, will it work? I am a political independent, so I am all about, I don't care if you're left or you're right, will it work? And that, for me, I think that the jury is still out, but I'd like to root for whoever is in office, because as an American, I just think that, it's the economy stupid.
And you mentioned that issue of him ginning up his base. He was speaking directly to Republicans when he said you should give money, speaking to the lawmakers, Republican lawmakers on Truth Social. He said you should give money directly to your personal health savings accounts. Republicans.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing I think that we have learned, whether you love this president or you hate him, that he is a master of taking over a news cycle, and he puts out these Truth Socials. Everyone gets talking about it just like we are right now. Then the people around him probably say, wait, is this real? Is this a negotiation tactic? And then it kind of gets put through the sausage making, and then we see what comes out of the other side. So just like, for instance, they've been telling the Republicans to blow up the filibuster. Are they going to do it? I have no idea. But the talk of it seemed to make the Democrats cave and give him a clean continuing resolution to reopen the government. So it is kind of 4D chess or, chaos, but that is where this president is strongest.
Yeah, to see if it's chess or checkers and who makes the right move. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Raveen Gandhi, for joining me to talk a little bit about some tariff talk. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
All right, everyone, it is 2:05. We're going to take a break. 2:07 right now. Thanks for staying with us. And if you're just joining us here in our 2 o'clock hour, I do want to let you know, right around 2:30, we're going to have a conversation with a realtor about a new idea for a 50-year mortgage. Listen, we've heard the idea of, we've heard of 15-year mortgages, we've heard of 30-year mortgages, but this new idea of a 50-year mortgage, we want to know your thoughts on that possibility. Do you think it's great? Do you think it's kind of out there? Do you think it's even possible? We want your questions. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, we are taking your questions right now. We can pose those to the realtor who is standing by. Again, right around 2:30, we will get to those questions and the realtor to have a conversation about the possibility of 50-year mortgages. But right now, I want to talk about some new technology that has helped investigators in Lake County to identify some leads and some key evidence in a case, take two suspects off of the streets in a murder for hire plot that has a lot of eyes on it. Deputy Chief Chris Cavelli in Lake County is joining me now to talk a bit about this big break and the technology that paved the way for it. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so take me back to the beginning of this case and walk us through what you know at this point in time.
Yeah, it's certainly a tragic and unusual case. Back on November 5th at about 5:45 in the morning, we were notified of a shooting victim that had been transported to an area hospital by a family member. Unfortunately, that shooting victim did pass away as a direct result of the shooting. The shooting was deemed to have happened in Beach Park, which is a community the Lake County Sheriff's Office is responsible for providing law enforcement service to. So our sheriff's deputies and sheriff's detectives immediately responded to the possible location and learned the victim had been sitting in his vehicle waiting for it to warm up before leaving for work in the morning when he was approached and shot by an individual. And what our detectives learned quickly was that the day before, on November 4th, a suspicious vehicle was seen driving around this neighborhood, and somebody had obtained a description of the vehicle, which is crucial today to have that information and be able to utilize that information to further a law enforcement investigation. So our detectives from there were able to take the information they had on this vehicle and use flock automatic license plate readers to start to hone in on a possible make, model, license plate. And what detectives quickly learned is that the vehicle that was seen on November 4th was also in the same area right around the time of the shooting, which determined to be a very good lead that investigators were able to use and eventually identify the offender from just that information.
Wow, wow, and wow. So this took you all to Wisconsin. Did the person that you all eventually get a hold of there, the two suspects, did they have priors? Or were these people known to police?
So I'm not quite sure on that, but what I do know is that the registered owner of the vehicle that was driving around the area the day before was indeed the driver of the car and the suspect in the shooting. He was an individual that investigators believe he was paid by somebody else to come and commit this murder and this shooting. So because of the technology, because of these license plate readers that exist and are just an enormous tool to law enforcement in the area, we were able to quickly identify an offender and quickly arrest him with the assistance of authorities in Wisconsin.
Yeah, so let's talk about the several different elements of technology here, because there was a phone used to coordinate the attack, so that's a piece of technology there as well. Then I see here, there's video plus the license plate technology. When did you all get this flock safety license plate technology?
So we've had access to the system for a couple of years now, and we're able to use it for missing endangered people and in situations like this where there's violent crime and somebody that has used a vehicle to commit a violent crime. And it has resulted in so many success stories for us. We don't have enough good things to say about it. And in this case, like you said, it created the first lead for our detectives. And then from that lead, they were able to identify a suspect. And then eventually, use their resources and their tools to obtain a search warrant to retrieve the firearm that was used in the shooting, as well as a cell phone that was used to communicate with the person who ordered the murder. And again, like you said, the person who ordered that homicide to occur has also been taken into custody and is being held right now.
Wow. So you mentioned the successes. Whenever I see anything that has to do with, technology being used for like surveillance, I would imagine you've gotten some pushback on this as well at points.
Absolutely. And we always have to balance the importance and the right to privacy of American citizens and people living in Illinois. It can't be used for unlawful purposes. And when it's used properly in good faith, it helps law enforcement solve crimes without a doubt very quickly. It's been a great tool for us. It has to be used properly, and law enforcement is keenly aware of that.
Yeah. What does, statewide, what does it look like in terms of policy to use these types of things?
So generally, if let's say a vehicle description or a license plate is going to be inputted in the system, there has to be a reason for it. It can't just be somebody wanting to obtain information on a random vehicle or a random person. You have to have a lawful purpose for it. So let's use a missing endangered person as an example. Somebody that doesn't have a cell phone with them, can't be tracked, hasn't been seen in hours or potentially days. We can use this network of cameras to try to figure out where that vehicle was last spotted. We can even enter it into what's called a hot list. So the second it hits off of one of these readers, local law enforcement's notified. And we've done that in many cases where we've located people that have been missing, maybe with dementia, Alzheimer's, and been able to safely reunite them with their families. So there has to be a lawful purpose for it, but they are a great tool for us.
Will it pick up a license plate from any state, or does this just happen to Illinois? And then what happens when someone leaves the state of Illinois?
Yeah, so how it works is that if we have a reason to search beyond the state of Illinois, we can include that we want to look in different states to see if this license plate is hit. Now, it's important to remember it only stores data for 30 days. So after 30 days, it's purged. There's no access to that. So if that license plate is seen in another state that has cameras and we have a reason to check that other state, we would see that it hit off of a camera within that 30 days. Same goes for Illinois. However, outside law enforcement agencies outside the state of Illinois and in the state of Illinois have to affirm that they're not using it in a prohibited manner, specifically anything that would violate the Trust Act, anything regarding human rights or immigration enforcement.
Yeah, there's so much connected to this. How costly is it for a department to have this?
Yeah, there is a cost to it. However, that cost pays off when you're saving lives and you are able to find people that are missing, endangered. It's absolutely worth the cost.
But do you all get grants or something like that for it?
There are grants available in the state of Illinois. The Illinois Attorney General's office has a grant specifically placing them in areas with a high risk of retail theft. So absolutely, there's grants and resources we can tap into to find the funds and utilize this technology.
Yeah. Can you think of some other high-profile cases here in the state, in the last couple of years where this type of technology has paid off?
Well, I can tell you we recently used it not too long ago in a kidnapping investigation where an individual had called 911 believing that he was seeing people abducted against their will, along with a vehicle description. And our telecommunicators and our 911 dispatch center and our deputies were able to immediately tap into the camera system with just a vehicle description and track down the vehicle that was used and quickly identify who the suspect was and rescue the victim from that individual.
Wow. I keep saying wow because it really is mind-blowing, really where technology is going. And I know you've been with the department for quite some time. Tell me about seeing this gradual increase in what you all are able to do via technology.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, just like every other profession and industry in our society, it advances, and we have to stay on top of it, and we have to advance with technology as well. I mean, 25 years ago, computers, receiving information in squad cars weren't even a thing. Many departments didn't have squad car cameras or body-worn cameras. So these are all developments over time that have made us be able to do our jobs much more effectively and efficiently. And it really helps to keep communities safe when we tap into the technology that's available.
Yeah. Okay. And what happens next in this particular case, the murder for hire plot? Where do things go from here?
So from here, the individual who committed the shooting, he's in custody in the Lake County Jail. He has been detained for the time being during his court proceedings. So he's been charged with a number of serious felony charges, and that will now proceed in the legal system. The individual who ordered the shooting is also in custody right now with outstanding warrants. Detectives are working on a few final leads in that aspect of the investigation, but they expect to screen that portion of the case with the state's attorney's office for charges in the near future as well. And certainly a difficult time for the victim's family going through this tragedy.
Yeah, but hopefully seeing some justice on the way, or at least some steps towards that. They're grateful for you all's work. Deputy Chief Chris Cavella, we always appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks. Have a great day.
All right, you too, and stay safe. It's 2:18 right now. We'll be right back. $2:20 right now, and I got to tell you, I've really been looking forward to this next conversation. When you think of the things that can make a family whole again after a terrible tragedy, we've lined up the director of UIC's Center for the Recovery and Identification of the Missing, or what's called CRIM. They are doing amazing work for service members missing in action from past conflicts. John Monahan is a professor of anthropology, and I just, even reading a little bit about what you all do, I am so taken aback in the best possible way. Tell me how long you all have had this center, and a little bit about the work that you all have been able to accomplish in that time.
Yeah, well, I guess we've been working at this since 2010. I received a call from the military fellow in Senator Durbin's office asking if we had the resources, the technology in order to help with this mission. And I was department head then. We did have the resources, and it's grown since then. We've ended up working on MIAs that are missing from the Second World War, throughout the world, and also from the Vietnam conflict.
It's truly, truly astounding. I see here 5 Vietnam War MIAs that you all have been able to bring home. What's the reaction from the families who have waited so long for moments like you're able to give them?
Well, I guess the way I answer that question is doing some research, I came across a letter that was written by Boyd Chambers. And if you're a University of Cincinnati basketball fan, you'll know that name. He was the coach of Cincinnati that really sort of started to put the program on the map in the 1920s and early 30s. And he lost his son in World War II. He was a pilot, shot down behind the lines, um, and uh, and and Coach Chambers got a note from the Defense Department saying that your son has been killed in action, and we haven't been able to recover his body, but rest assured he died in the service of his country. And Coach Chambers wrote a couple more times. He wanted to find out more details, and he kept getting the same answer. Rest assured, he died in the service of his country. And then finally, Coach Chambers wrote the letter that I'm referring to, and this is where he said, "Look, it's fine hearing that he died in the service of his country, but I really want you to treat my son not like a number, but I want to find out what happened to him
Yeah.
and how he died." And he said, "We know where his plane crashed. We know that area is no longer behind enemy lines. What's so hard about sending a Jeep up there and just trying to find out what happened?" And that's sort of what families are looking for, this kind of closure. That they want to know exactly what are the circumstances in which their loved ones were lost, and if possible, if we could bring back the remains. There's many families that have cemetery plots set up for their loved one who has died overseas, and their bodies have not yet been recovered.
Yeah, and they wait years, sometimes
hmm
decades. Tell me about the steps of you all's research.
Well, we work closely with a federal agency that's in charge of this mission. It's the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency, DPAA for short. And there's sort of 5 steps to the recovery process. One is research, so we bring in historians from our history department. The second is going out to the area where an incident may have occurred and questioning local people what they know about it. And that's where we bring in cultural anthropologists. Then archaeologists then carry out a survey to try to pinpoint the site and determine the size of the site. Then the next step is an excavation of the site. And then what we do is if we find any remains, they are turned over to the Central Identification Lab in Hickam Field in Hawaii, and their DNA analysis and other forensic tests are performed to see if the remains can be positively identified.
So much work. And I mean, obviously, every case is different, but maybe what's the shortest amount of time you all have been able to get this done? Or what's the lengthiest period that you all have had to work on one of these?
Well, there's one case where we've gone back multiple seasons to it's a bomber that crashed into a mountainside, and it's just a very complex excavation. And it's also quite far from any human habitation, so we have to bring in all the food and water that we use. That's probably those are the most difficult ones. But it's really a team process, and there's a lot of different groups with different areas of expertise that are brought in. So and the thing that really guides the process is being sure that we have who we say we have. So it's run very much like a crime scene almost, where you want to have chain of custody. There's very elaborate procedures for that, and to make sure that the what is found is is what we're looking for.
Yeah. How are you all funded?
We receive federal grants. There's also some university resources that are put into place. We've done this a lot with advanced graduate students and undergraduates. So our cost is actually much lower than that of the federal government to do this work. And I should say that we've had a lot of support from Dick Durbin's office, who's very much concerned with the memorialization of those who have died in the service of their country. And his office has been very helpful in getting this process going and expanding it. In 2010, what happened was the effort for recovery was mandated by Congress to include World War II veterans, as well as, or World War II losses, as well as those from the Vietnam War. Up till then, it had only been Vietnam that was the focus of recovery. But with this 2010 mandate, it expanded to include the World War II, the Korean War, and the Cold War. So this made the effort very different from what it had been. Suddenly, the number of cases expanded to about 80,000 from just a couple of thousand, and these 80,000 are spread all over the world. So universities have done their part to try to help fulfill this mission at a reasonable cost and to use their expertise in different areas. Ours happens to be in Southeast Asia, and we've been working on a number of different cases every year.
Wow. I'm seeing here of the 80,000 U.S. service members still missing from World War II, Korea and Vietnam, an estimated 35,000 may be recoverable. And this just has to underscore the importance of you all's work and having more teammates in it.
Exactly. And as technology, you were mentioning technology in your earlier segment. I mean, as technology evolves, we're finding that more and more recoveries can be made. So, things that 20 years ago you wouldn't have imagined could be done can be done now, and that's another area that universities can help the federal government with is gaining access and applying these new technologies.
Well, obviously, we are honoring our service members today, but you and your team are doing a service to this nation too, giving a reason for families to believe that maybe they'll receive the closure that they've been seeking for so long. So thank you for what you do.
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And please keep us updated.
I will.
Okay, 2:31, everyone. Let's take a quick break. And like I said, on the opposite end of this break, we're going to have a discussion where we want you to be involved in it. We're taking questions on YouTube and Facebook right now about a new idea for a 50-year mortgage. Weigh in, and we'll get to your questions when we're speaking with our realtor on the opposite side of the break. 2:34 right now, and this is the point in our show, something new that we're doing where we want to take questions from you on YouTube and Facebook as we speak to our expert. It's a Chicago realtor, Matt Laracy, about this idea of 50-year mortgages. Yes, we've heard of 15-year, we've heard of 30-year, but now President Trump has a proposal of 50-year mortgages, that possibility here. He signaled that they're planning to develop a 50-year mortgage plan that could expand access to home ownership, he says. But there's some experts who are cautioning about this, obviously. So, Matt, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining in this discussion, and I hope we get some others who will join in as well here. But give me your take when you heard the possibility of a 50-year mortgage.
I'm always excited with anything with real estate that could spur the market, right? You know, that's the upside about real estate. You always want things that are happening. So I think it was positive news in the announcement of them talking about it. I don't know in theory how well it would work out. I mean, you look at a 50-year mortgage, the thought process behind what they're trying to do is make housing more affordable and make it, you know, the barrier to entry for more people to enter the market with, you know, the housing affordability getting out of control. I just don't know if this is a solution, because ultimately, from going from a 30-year to a 50-year, you're really only saving $200 to maybe $300 a month. The big issue I see is how much interest actually you're going to pay, you know, at the end of the day. So, like, you know, let's use a $500,000 loan, for example. If you take out a $500,000 loan at a 6.25% interest rate, which is about average around where we're at today, you know, you're going to be paying, you know, about $608,000 exactly in interest. So $500,000 a loan, you're paying $608,000 in interest over those 30 years. If you do that on a 50-year, you're paying 1.135. So you're paying over, you know, almost double in interest over 50 years. And I just think, I don't know how that's the best solution personally. So when I heard the news, we did the math. We're like, long term, it doesn't make sense. Short term, it allows more people to buy a house. But I'm just not sure if that $200 to $300 is really going to make that big of a difference in the marketplace.
Yeah, in the long term here. So Chloe has a question. She says, how old would you have to be to take out a 50-year mortgage? First instance, if you were 18 years old and you take out a 50-year mortgage, she says you're then chained unless you pay double.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the best way to look at it, right? You know, and most people that are 18 years old aren't taking on a mortgage. Most people are going to be, you know, average home buyer is almost 40 years old right now. So at 50 years, that puts you at 90. You know, I think the thought process is, and again, I'm never hating on a good idea or a new idea. I'm not saying it's the best idea I've ever heard, but, you know, the fact is that people are living a lot longer today than they were, you know, when the 30-year mortgage was first introduced, right? Like, you know, it's not uncommon for people to live late 70s, 80s, 90s. Mm-hmm. And, you know, 20, 30 years ago, that wasn't as much the case. So I get the idea behind it. They would, you know, let's face it, this hasn't been passed, right? We don't know all the details. But, yeah, but like they would have to figure out a way to make the interest not be so crazy. And if that happened, that would kind of help with, you know, who just asked the question of like, well, how old do you have to be then? How much interest are you going to pay? You know, you're pretty much going to be handcuffed to this mortgage to the day you die, which I don't think is what people really want, you know?
Yeah, the Trump administration, one person from the Trump administration said over the weekend, responding to some of the criticism that they had received about this idea, we hear you, we are laser focused on ensuring the American dream for young people, and that can only happen on the economic level of home buying. A 50-year mortgage is simply a potential weapon in a wide arsenal of solutions that we are developing right now, so stay tuned. Is this a new version of what we would say is being house poor in the end?
It very well could be. Like, I think the way it's projected now, if you just took a traditional 30-year, right, and just made that a traditional 50-year, I would say that, yes, I would agree with that statement, that this could be a different version of just becoming more house poor. Now, could they tweak this? Could they make this a little bit of a different type of mortgage over 50 years? You know, time will still tell. We don't really know the case, but as it stands, if you compare it to a normal 30-year fix, yeah, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and of course, the appeal of the plan was to break up the logjam in the housing market because it's kind of been sluggish with sales. Would you agree with that as a realtor, that it's been sluggish in sales over the past year?
I wouldn't agree with that. I think in certain sectors of the market, it's the hottest market I've ever seen in my career.
Okay.
In other segments, I think there's been a big displacement in sales and the way people have started living, in the fact that like some sectors of our market are very, very slow and we have way too much inventory. Okay. And some sectors of our market, there's not enough inventory. That's where my concern is that people are looking for housing solutions to get more people to be able to afford housing, but nobody in the media is talking about the real problem that's happening, and the fact that cities in general, like look at our downtown markets, we have so much inventory in the downtown markets. You literally can't give inventory away. It just doesn't sell. Like you're lucky to get a showing at all, but you move just outside the city and there's no inventory. And that's where the real problem is, in my opinion, is we have too much inventory in some areas and not enough inventory in other areas. And then the inventory where people want to live, they should just build more housing. And I don't think lowering payments by $300 a month is really going to change that.
Does that go back into the idea of affordability? I mean, obviously, if you're looking downtown, you're looking at higher prices.
Yes and no. I mean, we're the third largest city in the country. You could get a condo for $150,000 or $200,000. That's cheaper than the average home price. Now, again, that's a one bedroom compared to like
Exactly.
a 3-bedroom, et cetera. But like my point is, it's like, for a big city, it's kind of cheap. You compare that pricing to something in San Francisco or New York, it's cheap. But I think the affordability crisis is a problem. And, the only solution to that is to build more affordable housing. And the biggest problem to be able to build affordable housing is the red tape it takes to be able to build a house itself. If they loosened up the red tape of the building criteria, I'm not saying that they need to build places that are not built quality or anything like that, but just the bureaucracy to be able to build a place in Chicago is so difficult that it actually eliminates and decentivizes people from building affordable housing. That's the problem, not the rates.
Yeah. So the director of Federal Housing Finance Agency says this 50-year mortgage idea is a game changer that they're working on with the president's blessing. What are some things that you think are a game changer that are already on the table right now?
And you mean in regards to the 50-year, correct?
To get more people in homes. Like if the 50-year, whether it comes through or not, and they're saying it's a game changer, but what are some other things that you think are really game changers that are on the table right now?
Well, I'll tell you right now, the good thing about the 50-year that would help just in general is just the idea of it and people thinking that their payments are going to be lower, right? Because it does help in certain sectors of the market. If your payment's only $2,000 a month, and then your payment then goes down to, let's call it $1,650 a month, that's a pretty big difference on a percentage basis of what you're paying. And that will create a rush of people to go buy it. So I think optically that could get people in the door. And, you may be thinking about buying a house and, you get these 50-year, mortgages and you're like, okay, well, now I want to buy. Like, this seems like it's going to be cheaper. Now it's going to be in my reach. And then once you do the research, you're like, well, you know what? I don't like the 50-year option. I'm just going to go with a normal 30-year that I'm used to. But now that creates the urgency for people to be able to buy. So sometimes it's just a little bit of spark. It's like the rate issue, right? Like a lot of people complain about rates, right? But like if you hear the Feds cut, the rates, what happens is all of a sudden showings tick up that week, and you see more contracts come in. And the funny thing is normally when Feds announce the rate cut, the actual interest rates go up because the current rates already are baked in, the anticipation of them, reducing the rate. So, people rush in to put more contracts down when they hear the rates cut, but in essence, they're paying more this week in an interest rate than they would have been before they announced the rate cut. So a lot of times with housing, it's all hype. A lot of it is just like you hear something cool, you think it's going to really make a difference in the marketplace, but it gets you to kind of go and start looking at places, and then you get sucked in. You're like, okay, like I want to buy it because of this. So I think on a game changer basis, I think the 50-year will kind of maybe create some urgency of people being like, you know what, I didn't think I can afford it, but when I see the payments that way, maybe it makes me want to buy it, and then they go into the 30. And what else people aren't talking about, and again, like, I'm bashing a little bit, but like, you look on the flip side of it saying like, hey, you could get a 50-year, I'm sure at some point you could refinance to a 15-year ARM or something like that, maybe when you get more money. But that 50-year gets you into the door for the first 2 years, and you start making more coin, and then you flip into something maybe you're not paying as much interest, right? So I'm sure there's going to be some options coming out like that. And I think that will help kind of create the urgency a little bit more as well.
That was a really interesting way to look at it, for sure, because otherwise you're just thinking, wait, is this stretching payments out an additional 20 years of your life? Which sounds wild.
But you can always refi. Like, I think people forget about that. Like, a big problem with the downtown sector is these high rises, none of them are warrantable anymore. So to get a regular mortgage, you got to get a conventional mortgage. Well, most banks won't loan on these big high rises right now because of, the Surfside rules. So what people are having to do is they have to get these portfolio loans. Those loans are anywhere from 7.5% to 8%. And what we tell people is like, hey, listen, when the building goes back off the blacklist of Fannie Mae, you just refinance and you go back down to, 5.5%, 6% rate where the rates go to. So you got to kind of look at this from a long-term approach. Like maybe this fifth year gets that person in the door for the first 3 to 5 years. And then, once they get a little bit more financially stable, right, they've been at their job longer, they're making more coin, they could then flip into a product that's maybe, pays down more of the principal and less of the interest.
Is it also a longer path, though, to like meaningful equity in your property?
Yeah, I think anytime that you could get more people to, build wealth through housing, the better those people are going to be. Right. So if this gives people the option to be able to have a path to home ownership, they could and as long as they could figure out a way to be able to, pay less interest over their lifetime, which again, we don't know the details yet because those aren't out yet. I do think that this will create more people to be able to buy a house, which I think is a good thing.
Tell me a little bit more about why 40 is now the average age for a home buyer.
I think there's like a million different factors at that, right?
We
you
got
have the
time.
fact that, like, people are starting later in life in general, right? Like, more people are going to college now than ever. And when they graduate college, they're in debt from college debt. So they're, living above their means. So then they start renting. And younger people these days always want to rent something really nice, like they can't just rent something that's, what's reputable for like what they can afford to do. People kind of overextend themselves now. We see that a lot in the downtown markets where people are renting $3,000 a month places when they should only be renting $2,000 a month places, but they want to have that showy place, so they spend an extra $1,000 a month, which means they're saving less, okay? And younger people are spending money more, okay? So there's people aren't saving as much, and it takes people a little bit longer to realize that, like, hey, we got to increase our savings and not our spending as much. And I think that's probably one of the biggest factors I see on an overall basis. It's just the people just aren't watching their finances as much as they should be, and they're overspending. I say this all the time, but I remember when I was a kid, if you went to Europe, that was like a big deal. It was like you were rich. You'd be like, oh my God, you see that family went to Europe? They're super rich. Nowadays, 18-year-old kids are flying first class to Europe like it's nothing, right? It just shows you the lack of caring of savings. I've read numerous articles that said the average American has less than $5,000 in their savings account. And I think a lot of that has to do with just that people have gotten used to just overspending and not saving. And I think that's what's pushing people into buying later in life. I personally don't think it's as much of the affordability issues that I think people need to be re-educated on how to balance a checkbook, how to save more. There's not a single class in college that says hey, let's talk about finances and what you should do with your money and how you should save throughout your lifetime. It's just that people rack up this college debt, they come out, nobody really knows what to do. They start making some money, they don't know what to save. Everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses, and next thing you know, they don't have any money in their savings account.
What are some other major hurdles that you face with clients, especially if it's their first time buying a property in these days?
I think the big thing that people need to look at is where do they want to be in the future and what can be the best investment for them, right? A lot of people either think about it too short term or they think about it too long term. So, let's look at that. So on a short term basis, I have a lot of clients that hey, I'm only going to be here for, 2 to 3 years. So, I need something that I could sell, but then they want to buy a 3-bedroom in case they have a kid in the future. And I'm like, well, you just said you're going to be here for 2 or 3 years. You're not even married. So when are you going to have the kid? So then they buy and they overextend themselves for a 3-bedroom. They should have only bought a 1-bedroom. On the flip side, you have a lot of people who have 3 kids and they try to buy something smaller than what they need. They're going to outgrow it really quickly. They're not looking at the long-term approach. So I think just people educating themselves on understanding what they really need and then backing into it is okay, what can you afford on a monthly basis? And I think it's just the overall education of that process.
Okay, and what's been maybe the highlight thus far this year for the real estate business?
Crane's published numerous articles about this. The luxury market in Chicagoland has been one of the greatest luxury markets we've ever seen. And, how does that affect affordability? Well, it's a domino effect, right? So if the high-end market's doing really well, that means that the people that are selling their step-up places are doing well because somebody's buying those, which then means that frees up inventory to go up to the luxury sector. If the step-up people are selling, that means the first-time buyer can buy up to the step-up person, and that means loosens up inventory for the first-time buyer. So it's all a domino effect. And as America, you mentioned this earlier, but it doesn't apply to our markets, because we always have to remember this, the markets are very micro-segmented, that if the American market's starting to soften up a little bit, that's going to free up inventory, right? So like Florida market's starting to take a hit, Texas market's taking a hit, Idaho's market's taking a hit, and that means that their prices are starting to come down, which means, guess what? A lot of people in Chicago, they sell their place and then they buy a place in Florida or Texas because they're retiring. But if Florida and Texas were so far out of grips and people can afford to buy there, guess what? They couldn't sell their place. So those markets matter to us because that's loosening up inventory for where our people normally go to when they sell.
Wow. Matt Laracy, you are a wealth of information. Is there a final note that you want people to think on, again, as these new ideas come out to get more people in the housing market?
I think the best thing you can always do is talk to either your financial advisor or your lender and figure out what it is that you want to pay a month, right? What is that number that you want to pay that makes you feel comfortable? You're not house poor like you mentioned earlier. What do you feel comfortable with? And then figure out what's the path that it takes you to be able to get there. And maybe that means that it's one less vacation a year that you have to save. So in the next 3 to 4 years, you could buy it, you're not house poor, or whatever that is. But I think getting a right plan in place to be able to understand what your payments are to get there and then what it takes to save. And I think that's the best thing anybody ever to do is actually look at the numbers and not just guesstimate.
Yeah, and don't compare lives on social media, all those vacations. Who knows how they're paying for it.
Yeah, don't get FOMO on that social. That's a problem,
Thank you so much for your time, Matt Laracy. We definitely have to have you back on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, you too. It's 2:51. Let's take a quick break. .253 right now. We always love having Chief Meteorologist Emily Walls here in Studio 32 to talk a little bit about our weather outside. Snowy day yesterday, a little bit more this morning.
We did. We had a little bit this morning, but fortunately, it was something that I kind of woke up, I looked at the radar and I was like, okay, we could see some coming down here this morning. But I will say that we have a fairly dry air mass, so it wasn't nearly as heavy as it could have been. So we actually had a lot of evaporation early today. Wonderful news for those of us that have seen enough enough snow.
For now.
But yes, we did have flurries, some very light snow showers out there. Those are long gone now. And now we're actually starting to punch some holes in the cloud cover. So we're beginning to see a little bit of sunshine out there. It's cold though. I don't know if you've spent any amount of time out there this afternoon.
Much colder than yesterday.
Well, so it's temperature
this morning at least it felt.
Yes, this morning it was very chilly. We were sitting in the 20s, but you can actually see the reflection on the bean here. We're starting to break into some sunshine. Unfortunately, you know, it's so late in the day that it's really not going to help warm us up too much, but temps right now across northeastern Illinois are sitting in the lower 40s. Northwest Indiana only in the 30s, but we have winds that are gusting over 30 miles per hour.
Okay, so that's what's making the difference.
Yes, it makes a huge difference. So those wind chill temps right now, even though we have temps in the 40s, they're only in the 20s. It is very, very chilly. And the next couple of days, we're going to ease back into where we should be. So
Which is?
Right around 50.
Okay.
So average high for this time of the year is 50 degrees. Average low temperature is right around 36. And if you think back to yesterday, we actually had a high temperature that was where our normal low temperatures are. So we're moving in the right direction here. Sunny skies on Wednesday, 50 degrees for your high, and then we're going above average for the rest of the week. 54, partly cloudy on Thursday, Friday, plenty of sunshine, mid to upper 50s. And then on Saturday, you know, there's a couple models, Anita, that are really trying to bring us close to 70. So, yes. So at this point, I feel safe saying that we're going to be at least in the mid 60s, but there's a shot at upper 60s for a lot of us. There's a very small chance of rain going into Sunday, but it's not going to be a wash. I know, you know, we're kind of a weekend early for that the tree lighting that's going to be taking place.
I think that's on the 21st.
Yes, so not this weekend, but next weekend. And unfortunately, we're not looking at 60s next weekend, but you know, that doesn't feel like Christmas time and the holiday season anyway.
Not at all. But it's just amazing how we can swing this pendulum like this.
Yeah, well, and you know, 'tis the season. So typically in the fall and in the spring, we'll get these systems that come down from Canada, bringing a rush of cold air. But fortunately, they're short-lived. So they're not going to last very long. And you know, the worst of it for us was on Sunday and Monday. Now we're kind of climbing out of that. So even though we have another system that's actually coming through tonight, it's going to come through dry. Temperatures, again, going to respond pretty nicely to the sunshine in the next few days. And then a huge change this weekend.
And do we have to worry at all? I'm like looking out of our window in front of us. Do we have to worry at all about like ice that will refreeze or anything on the roads?
So anything that's left untreated, we are going to see ice redeveloping tonight. So our ground temperatures, the soil temperatures, they're not at the freezing mark just yet. So that's why even for those of you that have a lot of snow out there still, we're seeing melting from the top and from the bottom. So that snowpack is not going to last very long. But road temperatures, they respond to about what your air temp is most of the time. Especially when we have low temperatures that are going down into the 20s to near 30 degrees. So road temps, yes, we are going to be seeing those dipping below the freezing mark again. So any untreated surfaces where we have seen some of that melting today, we could have ice redeveloping. And I will say, I was out and about this morning walking on the sidewalks. It was very, very icy this morning. I was like holding on to my husband, like trying to not fall. It was very icy on some of the sidewalks, and we're gonna have to deal with that, unfortunately, until that snowpack is gone. Because each day we're going to have the melting and then the refreeze at night.
Oh my. Okay, and this is just everyone's gonna do their own personal thing. But did you turn the heat on?
Today was the very first day for me with the heat on. But my place, I live in a place that you really don't need it that often. So it's a multi-unit place that I live in, so I'm kind of like insulated by everybody else turning on their heat. But this morning was the first day. There was just that extra chill, and plus
it was cold this morning.
Side note though, I have my parents coming to town this weekend, and I had to make sure the heat works because my mom would not be having it if it wasn't warm.
It's a totally different story when your parents are in town, and they're
so
like,
I had to
cold.
click it on.
What are you doing over here?
Yeah, I had to make sure it was working.
All right, I stayed with the air. I know. But
AC?
I know.
Anita.
I'm horrible. But if my parents were in town, I'd put the heat on too, and I would just sweat and suffer. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Here we go, everybody. Hopefully toward the 60s in the weekend. Something to look forward to. As we always look forward to the weekend anyway.
Always.
Yeah. 2:58. We'll be right back. Welcome to our new 3 o'clock hour here on Chicago Live. U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is holding a press conference at O'Hare. Let's listen in.
A week after the government opens, I want to say thank you to Senate Democrats, the 8 of them that voted to open up the government. That's critically important. This is now going to go to the House. I encourage every single Republican and Democrat to vote to open the government. And I don't want to be Chicken Little for you all. I'm going to give you what I see. So if the government doesn't open, if the House doesn't do its job, I've had questions about what happens for Thanksgiving. There's a lot of Thanksgiving travel. What's going to happen during that time frame? I'm going to tell you we are not going to get to Thanksgiving. You're going to see this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The big disruption thus far, massively more disruption as we come into the weekend if the government doesn't open. It is going to radically slow down. So the House has to do its work. And by the way, I'm very hopeful. It seems like they're in a good mood to come in and vote to open the government. And again, I hope they do that. We're going to take your questions in a moment, but I do want to let you hear from our acting ATO, head of our air traffic controllers, to talk about what he's seen. Then we'll come back and we'll take some of your questions. So Frank?
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Secretary. But before I say anything else, I do want to thank the men and the women, the air traffic controllers, our supervisors, our technicians, our individuals that work at our FAA JTOC and Command Center who have kept this system running over unprecedented times, under unsure times of when the next paycheck's going to come and how they're going to make ends meet. And through it all, they kept everyone at this airport safe, as well as all the airports around the country. Mr. Secretary, I also want to thank you for visiting these facilities, spending time with our controllers and our technicians and our managers to understand the problem and to hear from them firsthand. I can't tell you how much it means to them to have a boss come and listen to that and listen to them and how we're going to get past this shutdown. From the Air Traffic Organization, we're extremely hopeful that we are on the eve of the shutdown. And the reason why I'm saying that is this past weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, witnessed 3 of the highest staffing trigger numbers out of the 4 that we've had on record during this shutdown. Out of these whole entire days, we've seen 3 staffing triggers, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that severely impacted the operation. Normally, what we will do is we'll put in ground delay programs that you'll see your flights being delayed. That's a normal protocol. This past weekend saw us put in airspace flow programs where we had to slow the entire country down, which forced massive cancellations and delays. This is not sustainable for our air traffic controllers, for our technicians, and for the American public. For our controllers who are working and worried about what's going to happen to them, rest assured, when the shutdown's over, they will be made whole, and they'll be made whole within a week. What's really important for us is getting back to business. And what I mean by that is Thanksgiving is coming up. This is the time where everybody comes and connects with their loved ones. This is the time where air traffic controllers and technicians say, it's go time. It's go time for us. We want the shutdown to be over. We want our controllers back on the boards doing what they do best, which is separating traffic and keeping everyone safe. We look forward to getting back to business once this shutdown is over and ensuring that we once again hold true to what we promised to everyone in this room and across the country. We got you, we'll keep you safe, and rest assured we'll get through this together. Mr. Secretary?
Thank you. I want to thank Frank as well. He's done a masterful job at the FAA navigating this crisis for us. A couple points and I'll take your questions. As we come into Thanksgiving, this is a Super Bowl of air traffic controlling, right? It's massive movement of Americans. And again, this shutdown is going to get us to a place where we can get controllers back in our facilities controlling the airspace. I want to bring up one issue that I'll take your questions. You saw on Friday, on Saturday, we reduced our flights by 4%. So 4% of commercial aviation had to be canceled. Now, some have claimed that this was based on politics. This was based on pressure. And I would just tell you that this information to do this reduction in flights by 4% on Saturday, it came from the safety office. The safety office made the recommendation, they elevated it, and we implemented it. And I'd also note on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the cancellations in the airspace were higher than 4%, right? So some might argue we didn't cancel enough flights. Today, we increased it by another 2%. So we're at 6% of cancellations of flights in the airspace. Some have asked, when are you going to start rolling those back? The answer to that is this has all been data-based. We've seen incursions on runways. We've seen loss of separation in the airspace, and we've seen heightened complaints by pilots of the communication they're having with air traffic controllers. When this information goes in the wrong direction, we have to make decisions to keep people safe. You all saw it with the DCA air crash. The last administration didn't see the 85 near misses that happened in that airspace. They didn't take action. They didn't look at the data. So we are going to look at the data and make the best decisions possible to keep the traveling public safe. That's what we've done. When that data changes, we're going to start taking down from 6, maybe we'll go to 4, 2, and get back to normal air travel. But I want to just clarify what we've done and why we've done it with the reduction of flights. And by the way, I think that by having a system-wide reduction where people and airlines can think through the cancellations, that's far safer than seeing hotspots around the country and random cancellations and delays. It leaves airplanes stuck at certain airports. It leaves crews stuck in other locations. It's way harder to manage. So we think this was the best approach to reduce the risk in the system and improve safety. So with that, happy to take your questions.
Again, here we are listening in to U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy as he's giving an update on air travel and the stress on the air traffic controllers in this overall system. He's taking questions now, so let's listen in.
For comfort, can you expand a little bit about what the data shows, how close maybe some of these aircrafts are getting to each other, and then if this were to, God forbid, end in disaster, what you could say the DOT and the FAA is doing to prevent an aircraft fatality or something that really would be catastrophic?
Yeah, so we didn't have near misses, but we did see the incursions of those separation requirements, right? When you have that, that's a sign of more risk in the system, which was one of the factors we looked at when we made this decision. Listen, you could walk outside. I can't guarantee your safety. You get in your car. I can't guarantee safety, but I have to look at the risk in this system. And then we have to make decisions based on that risk and based on that pressure. And that's what we've done here. And again, it's been a lot of conversations, a lot of analysis, and making the best decisions we can possible with the information we have, the controllers we have. But to be clear, we are concerned about people having flights delayed and having their flights canceled. That's a problem. But that is a secondary problem to safety. Safety is the number one issue. I want you to get safely to where you're flying. That is issue number one.
And a quick follow-up, sir. Can you give us a timeline of what it might look like when the government does reopen to get things back to normal for the flying public and for the airports all across the country?
That's a great question. So we're going to wait to see the data on our end before we take out the restrictions in travel. That 6% we have in place right now. But it depends on controllers coming back to work. Today's a good sign. We had 4 staffing triggers today. On Saturday, there were 81. I think Sunday was 53. So real issues in the last 3 days, but today looks better. And the House does their work tomorrow. I think we're well on our way to getting to more normal air travel, less delays and less cancellations. Yes?
Hi, Miranda Davis, Bloomberg News. Earlier you mentioned that if the House does not vote or if the government does not reopen, there would be massive disruptions this weekend. Can you quantify that in terms of like a percentage of flights canceled?
So I can't quantify, but in my conversations with the airlines and with the FAA and what we're seeing with air traffic controllers, we feel there are going to be significant issues in the airspace. To quantify it, I don't have a crystal ball for you, but I can tell you what we're seeing with all of our equities, there will be real disruption. Oh, I think it's going to be more than 10%. And I think we might find airlines that have to make decisions. Do they keep flying? If this doesn't open, you might have airlines that say, we're going to ground our planes. We're not going to fly anymore. That's how serious this is. Yes?
Hi, Secretary Duffy. Casey Cronus with Fox 32. Can you respond to President Trump recommending a $10,000 bonus for air traffic controllers that have come to work during the shutdown? And then second, how do you plan to fill that gap of 2,000 air traffic controllers that you will need to when this is all done?
Yeah, listen, President Trump, brilliant. Listen, the air traffic controllers who didn't miss a day, they came for every scheduled shift that they had, they should get a bonus. Now, I don't know how many there are going to be. We have to do that analysis. But I'm aligned with the president. We are going to pay them a bonus. It'll be $10,000, depending on how many we have. They should come to the White House, and he should present them with their checks. They're patriots. We are grateful to them for the work that they've done. How do I make up the 2,000? So I was doing two things. I'm supercharging our air traffic control school, our academy, getting more young people to come in. From the time they apply to the time they get into the academy, I've truncated that. I'm paying them a bonus to come to the academy. We've kept paying the students at the academy a stipend to make sure the academy is still operational. We've done all those things, but we've seen that young people have been less willing to be air traffic controllers when they see they may not be paid. That's a problem. But the second part of what we've done is we have air traffic controllers who can retire after 25 years of service. I've asked them, they're the most experienced in the airspace. I said, would you please stay on? Please don't retire. I'll give you a 20% upfront cash bonus if you don't retire and you stay on the job. And what we've seen in the course of this shutdown is a far greater majority of those controllers that I thought were going to stay are now retiring. So it makes my problem more difficult, it's more challenging, but we are going to get the academy fully operational to get as many controllers into the airspace as possible to make up that differential. Yes?
Thank you. Kind of the opposite. The president's also talked about penalizing some of these air traffic controllers who took sick time. So can you talk about what that plan would look like there?
Well, my concern is for those air traffic controllers who, before they missed a paycheck and we're in the shutdown, they decided on a continual basis not to show up for work. They don't know how long the shutdown was going to be. They hadn't missed a pay period, and they didn't come to work. I'm concerned about those controllers. I'm concerned about their dedication. I'm concerned about their patriotism. And so we haven't made a decision, but we are going to look at those controllers who continually made the decision not to show up for work. And again, we have to look at the data. I would just tell you, I'm trying to bring more air traffic controllers in. I'm not trying to take air traffic controllers out. But if we have controllers who systemically weren't doing their job, we will take action. Yes?
Hi there, Maddie with CBS News. I wanted to ask how quickly will the air traffic controllers get paid once the government reopens?
So how quickly will air traffic controllers get paid? So they'll be paid within 24 to 48 hours of the government opening. They'll get 70% of their back pay in that time frame, and then after, the remainder will be made up. I think it's about a week they'll get the remainder of the pay. So very quickly they're going to get money in their bank accounts. By the way, kudos to the Congress for doing this. It's important we get them paid very quickly. By the way, we talk about air traffic controllers. We have technicians in our towers that keep our very, very old equipment operational. They've been coming to work to make sure our equipment works. They've been moving without pay. We have a wide swath of people who are focused on safety. It might be trains, it might be certifying aircraft that have all come to work without pay. We talk about the air traffic controllers today because it impacts people's lives, but a lot of people have gone through long work weeks, haven't got paid. I'm grateful they're going to hopefully get paid if the House does their work. Yes?
Hello, Secretary Duffy. Brona with WGN here in Chicago. You talked a lot about the cancellations and the delays, and I believe there are restrictions in place for the private jets as well. Did you fly here today on a private plane?
If you could re-ask your question, I couldn't hear you over the loudspeaker.
You talked a lot about delays and the cancellations of the commercial flights, and I believe there are restrictions in place for private planes as well. Did you fly here today on a private plane?
Did I fly here on a private? I wish. By the way, had I flown on a private plane, I would not have landed here at O'Hare because we have restrictions at LAX, Seattle, Denver, O'Hare, Boston, Newark, JFK, Atlanta, Dallas. You can't fly a private aircraft into those airports, the top 12. With some small exceptions to that rule, you can't fly a private aircraft. So no one's flying in here. But for those small exceptions. We've reduced private jet travel or general aviation by 10%, as well as if there are delays in the system, cancellations in the system, we've also put in restrictions that say commercial aircraft take a priority. The private jet travel would have to go to a different airport. So we are prioritizing the commercial traveler, the people who are coming through this airport. Now, I flew in on American Airlines from Wausau, Wisconsin today. I flew on Delta last night from DC. So no, I'm a commercial flyer. Thank you.
Just as a quick follow-up to that, I believe there are, I think I saw a figure of 1,700 plus private jets taking off yesterday alone around the country. What do you say to the people here who've been stranded for days in Chicago alone, who maybe don't have the means to fork over hundreds or thousands of dollars to do so?
So listen, I'm not at war with private jets. If there's an airport that doesn't have shutdowns and delays and it's not one of my top airports, and they want to fly their private jets out of there, that's fine. Or you want to fly your little Cessna out of there, that's fine too. I'm concerned about the airports that have the major disruption, right? So I'm not at war with anybody in aviation. I'm just trying to efficiently and effectively navigate the restrictions that we've had with air traffic controllers and make sure that commercial aviation is traveling well throughout the system, which would make sense. I think that's what anyone would do. Yes?
Hey, Patrick with NBC5 Chicago. So just to clarify, you said if the government doesn't reopen, we could see more than 10% delays, and some airlines might even ground planes. Have you talked to airlines about that, or what are you basing that off of?
I'm going to tell you that in the information that I have, you have significant disruption where you may find airlines that stop flying. Full stop. And what we see with our air traffic controllers, good day today, if the House doesn't pass this bill, I think you're going to look at Saturday, Sunday, and Monday as tiddlywinks. It was beautiful. It's going to get much worse than that. And we had talked about, and I had even mentioned, I think it would come at Thanksgiving. I don't think that's the case right now. I think it comes well before Thanksgiving. I think we would see that significant disruption coming this next weekend, maybe as early as Friday. And I think you're going to have airlines that make serious calculations about whether they continue to fly. Full stop. I'll do one more question, then I got to run.
What are the next steps to getting them that technology?
New technology for air traffic controllers. So I need $31.5 billion to do this build. The big, beautiful bill gave me $12.5 billion. So we're in the process of picking an integrator. No offense, Frank. The FAA does a great job at safety. They don't know how to build. So we're going to have an outside company manage the build. We're going to have radios, voice switches, new radar, new telecom. We have to switch from analog to digital. By the way, that's somewhat complicated to do that, and especially while we keep the airspace operational. That's what we have the money for right now. I'm hopeful that the Congress is going to give me the rest of the money. This is bipartisan, by the way. Republicans and Democrats agree we need the money. When I get the rest of those dollars, we are going to work on what's called a common automation platform, basically the software that's going to run our airspace. It has to be brand new, but it has to be developed, debugged, and then deployed. So that's going to take us longer than I think the 3-year period that we're on right now. And then the air traffic controllers, they need brand new equipment. You've seen the paper strips they use for flights. We're trying to move this to digital flight strips. Again, it's great 1985, 1993 equipment. It's a blast from the past, but we should live today and technology from today. And I would just tell you, what we're doing isn't easy. And because it isn't easy, no one else has done it. Everyone else has passed it off. And Frank and I and Brian Bedford, but most importantly, President Trump has said, actually deliver for the American people, fix this system. And so that's exactly what we're going to do. And by the way, I've talked about what this shutdown does for air traffic controllers. That's real. But it hasn't done that for this mission to modernize the airspace. We were given the money in the big, beautiful bill, so we had it in our coffers at the FAA. So that process has continued to move forward, which I'm grateful for. So that has not been delayed, though the air traffic controller issue is going to be a problem that we're going to deal with into the future. By the way, Chicago's been, at least today, running well. Love the air traffic controllers. I hope they get my flight out on time today. I put a good word in for myself. I'm kidding. But again, I fly to here quite a bit as well. I want to thank you for coming out and covering the story. Our mission, again, keep people safe. Keep people safe and do whatever we have to, no matter what the political noise is, to make sure that objective is accomplished. With that, thank you very much.
Okay, we were listening there to a press conference with Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy and also Air Traffic Organization Deputy Chief Operating Officer Franklin McIntosh. They covered quite a bit during that time frame. This, of course, began right around 3 o'clock here, so about 20 minutes. As I just kind of summarize a little bit of what they talked about. Obviously, they were thanking air traffic controllers who have kept the system running during this time of a government shutdown. They also thanked the senators who voted to reopen the government, but began urging the House to follow suit from the Senate and also vote to reopen the government, talking about the fact that in some of the movement that's happened this week, they are hopeful for change, that they have had 4 staffing triggers just today. And the hopeful aspect of that is the fact that there were 81 on Saturday alone. So no, we're not finished with the day, but there have only been 4 staffing triggers thus far today versus 81 total staffing triggers on Saturday. And they talked about how that impacts operations, and that when they have to make decisions that they say are based on safety, of course, and the risk, but they said that this is bigger than a ground delay when they have to do that. Although we have seen some ground delays over the last month, they say this is not sustainable for them to have to act in this manner. Now, talking about the air traffic controllers, there were plenty of questions that were asked by the reporters who were there. They talked about, when are the air traffic controllers going to get paid when this government shutdown is over? If you were with us in our 1 o'clock hour, I spoke with our own Casey Cronus as she was on her way to this press conference. And in that conversation, we talked about the fact that in the last government shutdown that lasted 35 days, keep in mind, we've gone longer than that. And this one, it took 2 months for air traffic controllers to get their full pay. So they say that in this instance, their outlook is that air traffic controllers would be made whole within 1 week of the government reopening again, and that they would have at least 70% of their pay within 24 to 48 hours. So that's going to be something that we look at for sure moving forward. Will these air traffic controllers who have been working, they've gone now without 2 full paychecks, will they get their pay within a week fully, or at least 70% of the pay that they're due? Back pay here is what we're talking about, within 24 to 48 hours of the government reopening. But But of course, we're not at that point yet. Congress still has to act on this, and then the president still has to weigh in on it as well. So they talked about the fact that they're concerned about delays and cancellations. Yes, especially as we get closer to Thanksgiving, which is such a high travel time, but safety first. And that a few things factor into what they're looking at here. They said that they're looking at data and the amount of controllers that come back once the government shutdown ends. Those two factors will have to be in play before they can even actually get back to operating as normal. So the longer this goes, this was a statement that was made by the Transportation Secretary that the reporters immediately kind of harped back on, that the longer this goes, this government shutdown, which we are now in 40 some odd days here, that the airlines, he says, there have been enough significant disruptions that some airlines may have to start making decisions as to whether they even keep flying. We'll ask more questions on that. It was a big statement to be made, but he said full stop, that he means it. Some of these airlines will have to make that decision as to whether they even continue to fly. Now, I mentioned the fact that Casey Cronus was there. She asked about another aspect of our conversation from earlier. President Trump has said that he would like to offer $10,000 bonuses to the air traffic controllers who have been working without pay during this time. And the response from the Transportation Secretary was that he thought it was a brilliant idea coming from the president, that he is in line with him, and he says that he would like not only to give them the $10,000 bonus, but he says that they should be able to come to the White House and receive that $10,000 bonus in person. Speaking of some other things in terms of bonuses, stipends, and whatnot, he talked about the fact that of bringing more people into air traffic control and into the system. Of course, many of the issues that we're seeing right now have been a part of a ripple effect that started even before the government shutdown. The Air Traffic Controllers Association, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, warned for months, really, for years, honestly, about the shortages that they were already seeing, the delays that they were already seeing in getting people into these air traffic control systems, and the people who were retiring, and the fact that the math was not mathing, that they were getting an imbalance there that was going to become an issue at some point in time, and here we are. So the Transportation Secretary says to that point that he wants to supercharge air traffic control school, that he would like to give bonuses to people who come into the academy, that he has offered stipends to people who stay in the academy, and that he would also like to offer 20% upfront bonuses for people who are of retirement age to stay on. One of the things, going back to my conversation with Casey Cronus earlier, was about that aspect of how many people are retiring. Sean Duffy said on Sunday that 15 to 20 air traffic controllers are retiring daily during this shutdown. So again, talking about that imbalance where you're not seeing as many people going in, and you have 15 to 20 air traffic controllers who are retiring daily during this time. He said on the flip side, there was a comment by the president over the weekend talking about the fact that people who have not been coming in, who have been calling out, some of them because maybe they had to pick up a second job during this government shutdown so that they could have some type of income coming in, regardless of whether they're going to get back pay or not, that they should be docked, that their pay should be docked. And so the Transportation Secretary was asked about that. He says that he is concerned about their dedication, about their patriotism, and that is of those people who are not showing up for work right now, that he is concerned about their dedication and their patriotism. Now, again here, that conversation began around 3 o'clock. The press conference began around 3 o'clock. One of the questions he was asked was about how he arrived here in Chicago today, because there are business jets and private flights that are now being affected now that cannot fly into O'Hare airspace. He says that he has traveled on both American and Delta, in the last couple of days, and that he is also looking for Congress, when this is all said and done, to give him $31.5 billion for new technology. And again, that has to come from Congress. But right now, the big issue is urging Congress to vote to reopen the government. So that's where things stand. Again, he was moving on as he kind of tours different airports. That was the latest, though, from Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy and the Air Traffic Organization Deputy Chief Operating Officer Franklin McIntosh. It's 3:30. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. .332 right now, and Senator Tammy Duckworth is at the University of Chicago Institute of Politics for a fireside chat right now, obviously talking about the government shutdown, but also serving as a veteran on this Veterans Day. Let's listen in.
Kidnapping them without due process off the streets of Chicago, which is what this Trump administration is doing. According to DHS own data, less than 13% of the people that they've deported in the Trump administration so far have had a felony conviction. The rest of them have not had. That's DHS data that they put that out. Less than 13% have had a felony conviction. Everybody else has not had a felony conviction. That's who they're deporting. That doesn't help us as a nation.
They were all in the country illegally.
I'm tempted to ask you a Ukraine follow-up, but I'm not going to. I'm going to resist. So go ahead. Next, please.
Senator Duckworth, thank you. My name is Luke. I'm a master's student at the Committee on International Relations. The last time the United States formally declared war was in World War II. Since then, we've seen a soaring military expenditure budget, yet no formal declarations of war. You touched on Venezuela earlier. What do you think the history tells us about the future of the role of Congress and the military and wars from the United States? And do you think that the military budget needs to reflect the utility of the U.S. armed forces?
So I think that what it tells you is that members of Congress are cowards and are not willing to actually go and vote yes or no on declaring war, and would rather let the executive branch make that decision so that they can hide behind not having to vote for it. And I think that is actually a ceding of Congress's power and responsibility to the American people. It's one of the reasons why I decided to run for Congress, because of the abuse of the AUMF, the authorization for use of military force, by both Republican and Democratic administration. I fought with the Obama administration on this, their abuse of the 2001 AUMF and 2003 AUMF. I fought hard to end those. And so what I've learned is that both Democratic and Republican executive branches will exploit unless Congress does its job and stands up and makes very, very strong statements on what is war and what is not. It's why I ran for Congress. And I've often said this because I want to be there in that Capitol talking about what the true cost of war is the next time the drums of war sound. And you have a lot of people who like to beat the drums of war but don't really want to pay for that war. And that cost of that war is more than just the guns and ammunition of the war itself. It is the cost to our military men and women and the veterans that we're going to be taking care of for the rest of their lives. And we, the American people, need to know what that true cost is before we decide to go to war again.
Okay, we've been listening in there again to Senator Tammy Duckworth as she's doing a fireside chat with the Institute of Politics at the University of Chicago and their senior director, Jennifer Stonheier, about what's been going on both in Washington, D.C. and here in Illinois. As soon as we went to her, she had just been started to take questions from the audience. She was asked about immigration enforcement. She talked about some of that here in our area. Of course, one of the other major issues that she was there to address were support and federal resources for service members and their families. Of course, it's Veterans Day. She herself is a wounded warrior. And the other thing was the government shutdown. For here in Illinois, our senators, our U.S. senators, Tammy Duckworth and U.S. Senator Dick Durbin, were on very different sides of this. They are both Democrats. They were on very different sides of the government shutdown. He voted with senators, there were 8 in total, who voted to reopen the government. Senator Duckworth was not okay with that. She said here that President Trump and Republicans refuse to fight for American families, but I refuse to give up on them. I simply cannot and I will not vote to do anything to help protect them from Trump's vindictive and malicious efforts in exchange for a vague promise from the least trustworthy Republican Party in our nation's history. That, of course, coming from Senator Duckworth. So, again, it did pass through the Senate. It now goes to the House, and we'll have to see how things go in the House. It will then have to go to the president. But Senators Duckworth and Durbin on very different sides of reopening the government. So we'll continue to watch what she's saying there in that fireside chat there at the University of Chicago. But we want to move on. We have another discussion that we want to get to that's really raised a lot of eyebrows, especially for women and for those who love us, you know, who are concerned about our health. Hormone therapies. This is coming from the Food and Drug Administration on Monday. That hormone therapies for menopause will no longer carry a black box warning about serious risks such as breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke. Again, that's a new announcement from the FDA on Monday. I want to go ahead and bring in Dr. Susan Scanlon, certified menopause practitioner and president of Midwest Center for Women's Healthcare. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate talking to you as always.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Give me your reaction to hearing that first and foremost.
I think it's a great day for women's health that they're going to release that black box. You know, that's has been a fear barrier for a long time to both patients and physicians. Patients, when they read that, even if their physician has prescribed hormone therapy, goes home, takes out that package insert, and does not want to initiate the hormone therapy despite all the known evidence now of long-term health with hormone therapy use. And furthermore, the physicians are more comfortable now utilizing hormone therapy if they don't face a black box warning. It will still contain some warnings in there. For example, uterine cancer risk is higher with the use of unopposed estrogen. Number 2 is that closer than 10 years since your completion of menopause and under the age of 60 is what's recommended. And then third is that local estrogen therapy is beneficial, whereas they're still studying some of the other forms of hormone therapy to still talk to your doctor about those. So there will still be something in a black box, But the overall blanket statement is what's being released. And I think that's a great day for women's health.
That maybe it goes too far and then kind of scares people from even doing it. And these are commonly prescribed, but some people have said that this new advisement, this new guidance here is based off of outdated science and that it discourages women from taking hormone therapy.
Yes, you are correct. So when the Women's Health Initiative study came out, it was intended to look at the risks and benefits of hormone therapy. Well, the early findings were released too early without adequate interpretation. And it went right to the media rather than to the medical community. And what the highlights, the headlines said were, hormone therapy causes breast cancer and heart disease. So any doctor working that day, I was working that day, had patients come in, they're like, did you see the morning news? Hormone therapy is causing me harm. I'm going to get cancer and heart disease. So here we didn't even have a conversation as a medical community on how to handle the information. The study was discontinued early based on that misinformation. And unfortunately, it led to 2 decades of women not receiving that option for hormone therapy. And that was really a detriment to those patients' long-term health.
Yeah, and you've been a longtime advocate of hormone therapy, as I'm seeing here. So tell me some of the other myths or misinformation you have had to debunk in the years.
About hormone therapy? Sure.
Yes.
Well, one big example is vaginal estrogen therapy is safe for breast cancer patients to use. It does not cause an increased risk of breast cancer, and it does not cause a recurrence of breast cancer in patients who use a vaginal approach for estrogen therapy. So patients who suffer from genitourinary syndrome, which is pain and dryness, really, it's great for them to know that they don't have to suffer with that. And there is a treatment option that's available and safe to use.
And I guess, for women who maybe are in perimenopause and kind of looking ahead, what steps would you say? I mean, do you say hormone therapy is something that someone should start at what age, or what kind of triggers say they may need hormone therapy?
Sure, that's a great question. A lot of patients come in when all of a sudden they feel like they're not really in charge of their life. They used to be able to manage their household and their job and everything in between, and it's just all of a sudden they feel they just don't feel themselves. And so hot flashes, night sweats, joint pain, increase in headaches, painful sex, lack of an interest in sex are really common symptoms that bring them into the office. There are, thankfully, a lot of treatment options, because for years when doctors were hesitant to use hormone therapy, thankfully other treatment options evolved. But hormone therapy, really for the majority of women who are healthy in the early stages of their perimenopausal transition and into menopause, have hormone therapy as a safe treatment option. So talk to your doctor. If your doctor's not really comfortable, I am a certified menopause practitioner. There are a lot of doctors who have a focus now on menopause. So talk to your doctors about the pros and cons and all the options available to you.
Can you talk a little bit more about the importance of your specialty? Because I remember Halle Berry came here to speak not too long ago, and she was talking about the fact that a lot of doctors aren't comfortable having that title.
Oh, sure. There's so many aspects to the field of obstetrics and gynecology. Most doctors are drawn to obstetrics. It's a joyful part of the job. Gynecology is surgically based and also office based. Well, one aspect of it is menopause. I have taken care of patients for over 25 years with menopause, been a certified menopause practitioner for 15 years. So it's a big part of my practice. I'm very comfortable with it. With all the treatment options, but a lot of doctors, partially because of this black box in the prescribing information, were hesitant to even offer it to patients. Most OBGYNs, at least, are educated on the topic to some degree, but your internal medicine, the primary care doctors, really have not had adequate access to that information over the years. And so they oftentimes are very uncomfortable with the information. So seeing a certified menopause practitioner is considered a menopause expert. They're fully passionate about the topic and really can give you all the pros and cons of the different treatment options, not just hormones, but everything else, and get you onto the path of feeling better.
Yeah. And speak to me, maybe on a final note, about the reaction you get from women who may have been very apprehensive, let's say, to try hormone therapy and then give it a go.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to have a conversation with each individual patient in an individual way, because everybody's experience is so different. And so really listening to the patient, what are your symptoms that bother you the most? And you oftentimes can't fix everything in one office visit. So we try and tackle the top irritating symptoms that they have and go through the pros and cons of each of those choices, the risks, the benefits, what the side effect profile is, and decide together which treatment choice. It's always interesting what patients pick. Sometimes when they come in, they're like, I definitely want hormone therapy. And then when you listen to them and they're like, you know what, my issue is really joint pain, and I really don't want a medication. What can I try? We talk about hormone therapy, but then a supplement such as glucosamine chondroitin is a nice option to consider. Increasing their exercise is one type of example. Or if people have painful sex, and they don't want to try a medication quite yet. There are moisturizers that contain hyaluronic acid that maybe they want to try first. So it's always interesting what patients end up selecting, but the most important thing to me as a doctor is that you are educated on the choices and that you give your patient all the choices, because it is her life and she gets to choose what she'd like to do.
Dr. Scanlon, you are excellent. I'm going to jot your name down myself. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Take care. It's 3:46. Let's take a quick break. Okay, 3:49 right now, last conversation of the day, and Clean Capital has just cut the ribbon on a new solar project. This is built on a former EPA Superfund landfill in Waukegan, Illinois. There's a lot to discuss here with Paul Curran, Chief Development Officer of Clean Capital. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Anita. Good to be here.
I really, this is really interesting stuff here, especially where it was built. Tell me about the significance of that.
Sure. So this is a piece of property that's right in the middle of Waukegan. It's a Superfund site, as you say. It was used as a dump for many years. And, it's been cleaned up by the EPA now, but it's still not the kind of place where you want your kids playing. It's not the kind of place that should be, you can't build a building or anything of that sort. So, the city of Waukegan really came out and said, what can we do with this? And, we worked with them on the solar energy option and really came up with a great solution for this property and for the community.
So I'm seeing that this clean energy site will generate enough power for over 1,800 homes annually. Tell me how that works.
Sure. So we generate electricity and we put it into the grid. ComEd has been working with us. Then they can allocate that power to people who sign up and look for the benefits. The people who sign up get a 50% benefit on their bill, so it's cheaper electricity than they would be paying from the normal ComEd system and so forth. So the power is generated as the sun shines. People can obviously use the power when they need to, and ComEd does the balancing for us.
And that discount, as I'm seeing, could be, it could end up with a savings of $400 per year on people's energy bills. How does that factor out?
Well, they get a savings for every kilowatt hour that they buy from us. The $400 is based upon today's prices, and if power rates go up, as they often do, they get a bigger savings, actually. So the number is an estimate based on today's prices, and if they go up, the savings will be even better for the local community.
How do you see this being a part of where we're moving into the future?
Oh, I think, renewable energy is always going to be a factor. Power prices have gone up across the country largely because, to be honest with you, we just don't have enough new power energy sources for electricity. We've all talked about data centers coming in, and we all use ChatGPT, and there needs a lot of electricity for those types of services. So we need to build more electric generating power plants, and solar is just an obvious, great way to do it. Low carbon footprint. In this case, all we're really using is the surface of a Superfund site, and so the environmental footprint is just outstanding in a community that really was looking for some environmental benefits. Our landlord in this case is this Waukegan School District, so we're going to be paying them about $200,000 a year in land rent just to use that surface of the dump.
Wow, very interesting. And will the students do some projects with it or something?
Oh, we sure hope so. We've invited them. Obviously, the plant is just opening now, so we're looking forward to making sure that the students can learn as much as they possibly can about renewable energy. It's a great skill for them to be picking up in their education program, and we've been a good partner so far with the school district. They've been really helpful to us in getting all the approvals we need, and we're looking forward to continuing that through kind of the fun part of teaching more and more students how renewable energy works.
Is this rare in this state, or are there many more examples of this?
Well, doing solar on a landfill and certainly on a Superfund site is a bit rare. Regrettably, there's an awful lot of landfills and Superfund sites around Illinois. So it's a great thing that we've done here. And as I said to Mayor Cunningham yesterday, don't be surprised that we get some tourists coming into Waukegan who want to see what's been done here so that they can copy it.
Sure.
It's a great thing. There are too many landfills that already exist. Using the surface of those landfills for this kind of an application just makes an awful lot of sense, Anita, and something that we're really proud to be a part of.
How long did it take you all to, take this from idea to fruition?
Oh, way too long. It was years. But you have to be very careful in approaching this. Frankly, the story I'm telling you often gets the reaction of, that sounds too good to be true. And in addition to that, the EPA needs to approve every single step of construction to make sure that we're not going to damage the Superfund site that has been cleaned up, and that you don't want to do any damage to that site in putting in the solar energy system. So it took them a long time to approve every single step of construction as we would do it. And so it's taken a long time to get here, but we're really glad we did.
Yeah, and I guess that's an aspect of it that I would like to address with you, or like you to address with me. What was some of the pushback that you all got along the way?
Oh, it was really the newness of it. I think as we approached the EPA, this region had not seen a solar energy project on a Superfund site. We've done it elsewhere around the country, but this was new to them. So they wanted to know exactly how would this be done, and literally, what is going to be on the ground, what type of vehicles will you drive on there after you build it, how will you mow the lawn. Every single aspect of a solar project there had to be reviewed, and we did it very, very carefully. As I say, we've done this before around the country many, many times, but it's something that each community has every right to be circumspect about the ideas and how we're going to do it. And then the commercial transaction of negotiating a lease with the school district on a Superfund site took a little bit of time. Again, school district in Waukegan, Illinois doesn't do an awful lot of land leases for Superfund sites, and so it just required a little bit of extra time to make sure that we got everything right. And at the end, we did get it right.
Yeah, and I'm seeing, and just in some other cases, of course, not you all, you just opened, but there have been concerns in the past about contaminant exposure, air pollution, water contamination. Did you all have, community meetings to address those things?
We did, and we've really sort of enjoyed that part, to be honest with you. People brought in, any type of worries that they would have. Some of them are, crazy thoughts that people just heard on the internet, and some of them are very valid. This is a Superfund site. Historically, this was a problem. The mayor yesterday called it an environmental nightmare, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, and so forth. And today he says we turned it into an environmental dream. We want to make sure that people understood that all of the safeguards that have been put in place to protect the community from the Superfund site itself were maintained through the construction of the solar project. Literally, the only thing that touches the ground, the foundations for these solar racks, looks a little bit like a little kid's swimming pool. It's about a foot high and maybe 3 or 4 feet wide, and we fill it up with concrete, and that's what holds the whole thing down. We had to do a lot of design work to make sure we put enough of those little kids' swimming pools all over the site to make sure there's enough foundation to ensure us during storms or anything else that might come up. But it is a proven way of designing solar energy, and the panels themselves have been put in there, generating electricity, as you say, for about 1,000 homes of electricity during the course of the year.
Wow, really intriguing stuff here. And Paul, just from here, you cut the ribbon. What happens next?
Well, the funny part is we're trying to sign up enough customers now, people in the community that will get 50% discounts on their bill. They can sign up for that by contacting City Hall, or they can call us at 646-351-0840. That's a special phone number where people can be qualified and immediately start saving on their ComEd bill as it comes through.
All right. Paul Curran, Chief Development Officer of Clean Capital. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Anita. It's great to be with you.
Absolutely. And thank everyone for joining us today for another day of Chicago Live, an expanded day now into 3 hours. We appreciate your time.